Good morning. Good morning. Good morning to all of you, villagers. Villagers. I like saying that word. I have extra special news for you this morning that I could hardly wait to share with you. Now, you recall that we've been going for many years now, having the annual Villager Awards, and then along came the COVID-19 uh, virus, just as we were in the middle of actually finishing up on our planning for the 2020 Villager Awards. And of course, we brought that planning for the Villager Awards as we know it to an immediate halt because we knew at that time that we did not need to be doing a large face-to-face kind of gathering. But let me tell you, villagers, that did not stop the thinking as we were trying to figure out ways how to bring to you and now to bring to the broader world the whole spirit of the Villager Awards. Now, those of you particularly who have been recipients of Villager Awards, who have attended our events, who've read the stories, you know that our purpose in the Villager Awards has been to bring together Black people from all over the diaspora, all over the African continent, all over right here in the United States and right here in California and right here in Long Beach to sort of bring us together and to be able to hear what I like to call the backstory. The backstory are those stories that are sort of behind who we have become and what we're doing and what we're experiencing every day. Because otherwise, we don't bring those stories forward. What we find people seeing are what I call sort of the outward facing appearance that we have to put on every single day in what we do, and not really knowing the strength and the determination and the struggles and the opportunities that we've taken advantage of it. I think that's really going to be important because particularly what I'm learning now as I'm watching things unfold with the discussions now about race and about racial justice, I'm really understanding how few of those stories have really gotten out there. And I said, we have over 100 stories in the Villager Awards, over 100 stories. And we want to start bringing those stories forward now to larger audiences. We want people to meet you and to know you. And so we're ready to start. And we're in the process now. Many of you have been contacted already. And if you haven't been, you will be contacted fairly soon as we are scheduling times now to do these webinars. And we're just so excited about that. So let me tell you about them. I'm going to tell you about the first two in the series that we're going to be doing. One of this 2020 Villager Award recipients was Sandra Johnson. But Sandra could not get that award, needless to say, because we were not up and running. We didn't have the live, but I'm here to tell you, we've had many sessions with Sandra now. We've had a chance for her to meet with our interns, to meet with our youth. We have a youth board now. To our young youth board members, I've had a chance to interview her. We've had a chance for one of our former Villager Award recipients to actually participate with us in one of our sessions with Sandra. And so I'm really excited about that. Now, just to give you just a snippet of what you're in for when you hear about Sandra. I've known Sandra for many years, and I've seen her, though, for many years. You know how that is. Sandra was one of the early graduates of the recently at the time desegregated Little Rock Central High School back in the early 1960s, entering that high school after the Little Rock Night. She graduated from Central High School 1 year ahead of me. And I think that's really important for you to know. But we were there together. I first met her when I came into Central High School in the 9th grade at the time. And so I'm telling you, Sandra has an amazing story to tell. And it's a story that deals with a lot of different things. We as Black people come in many different shades and hues, as you already know. And Sandra happened to be very, very fair-skinned Black who attended Little Rock Central High School. And this was, I think, fairly new for white people there who weren't quite used to seeing someone who was Black, but who really looked very, very white in her appearance. And so Sandra has written a book about that, about what that experience was like. And we've had some conversations about that, and she's very candid in that. Sandra says that she wrote the book because she really wanted her family to sort of know her story. Her story goes well beyond Little Rock Central High School and takes us well into a world after that and things that she did after that. She had an amazing and a very compelling life story. And so I want you to meet my friend. I want you to meet Sandra. I want you to hear her story. You're going to have a chance to do that. And I think that you will be absolutely moved by her story. That's for sure. And we do these like in conversation. So it'll be a very conversational tone that you will hear. And I think you're going to really get a lot out of that. Now, I intend to, as time goes on, we're going to bring Sandra back again, even after this time, because we're trying to pull together actually generational stories of people who were there in the 1950s and 60s in the 60s at Little Rock Central High School, all the way up until this current generation, because we now have generational stories. I think you might be surprised at some of the similarities in those stories, as well as some of the differences, and as well as what their lives has been like along the way. We think that we know enough people that we can show you that entire continuum, and we can do that within the confines almost of a single family. So stay tuned for that date. I will be getting that out to you shortly. And then the next group that we're going to have is what I like to call them Long Beach royalty. And these are the descendants of Mrs. Trilla and Pete Scott. I moved to Long Beach, California in 1986 when I was moved here by the Department of Veterans Affairs. And it was a wonderful move for me. But I never lived in California before, never been to California. I had a brother and sister-in-law, a niece and nephews that lived here. Other than that, I didn't know anybody here in the state or in the city or surrounding areas of Long Beach. I remember Mrs. Scott very well. I came here as a chief of nursing education and research, and somehow she heard about me. I don't know how, but she came walking over there to that nursing education building, and she introduced herself to me, and she just sort of took me under her wings. She really did. She took me into her home, number one. She invited me to come over. Oh, my goodness, she could cook the best pound cake in the world. And I remember coming, and she would sit, and especially when she learned that I was originally from Arkansas, because she was from Hope, Arkansas originally, and I was from Little Rock, Arkansas originally. So we had an instant bond at that time. I ended up attending the same church, joining the church that she attended as well, worked with her on many projects, because if you knew Mrs. Scott, you had no choice except to work with her on some projects. So she would definitely pull you into that. But just to make a long story short, I just wanted to say that I consider her one of my dearest friends, one of my dearest motivators, because one of the things that Mrs. Scott really pushed hard for was the importance of telling one story, and particularly the importance of us as Black people having our stories out there. She says, because Willingham, they don't know. They don't know. They really don't know. And I haven't forgotten that. I remember the last conversation that I had with Mrs. Trilla Scott. I was in her home, and she had just finished the manuscript for her book that she was about to have published. And she told me, she said, now, Willingham, you know how editors like to have you do that. These editors, they keep wanting me to change things. You know, they want me to change this word, change that word. You know, I said, look, I have written my story. That is my story. I'm not changing anything. She says, I don't have time to do all of these changes. I'm an old woman now. She said, but I want this book to be out because this is a book that I intend to leave here for my children and my grandchildren and everybody else. They need to know. Our people need to know our stories. They need to know the stories, William. I never forgot that conversation. I've never forgotten that conversation. And I think that conversation was important to me. But I think that book and the story, and that was her second book, that was not her first book, the story of this woman's life through her very heart and her words as she experienced it, as it meant to her, is a piece of American history. She was an amazing poet, and her poems just spoke to who we are as Black people. She spoke to the soul of who we are. And I think you need to know that. So Mrs. Scott passed away shortly after that time. We met here in her house. And I'd come to know the rest of her family at that time. After she had passed away, you know, we were talking about that. And I said, you know, I wanted her to be the very first Villager Award recipient. That had already, we knew that. She'd accomplished too much for us not to do that. So she was going to be the first. But she passed away. And so she became the very first posthumous recipient of a Villager Award. And when we gave her that award, one of the things, I think it was her grandson that or was maybe it was her son or grandson, I can't remember who did it, but you got to find that out shortly anyway. But I think that what happened with that was that we just didn't want her story to go away. I was afraid that it would go away. And I knew that if we gave this Villager Award ultimately, we can keep that story alive. And that's exactly what we're trying to do now. But let me tell you something. Her generations after her have definitely walked through what the things that she would have loved, things that she would have imagined that they would be doing now. And they're bringing that history forward. And so we got to thinking about that. And we were talking about it as we were looking at who would be the next group of Villager Award recipients. And that next group of Villager Award recipients, her daughter, Sharon, and her son-in-law, David, Sharon and David Magnus, were selected to be Villager Award recipients. These two people, this couple, had started something that I just knew that Mrs. Scott would have just been thrilled about. They started this thing called the Forgotten Images Museum. And that they traveled all over this country, collecting all of these relics from the past of how African Americans, Black people, were treated in this country. They walked it all the way through from slavery and times of enslavement all the way up. And that museum has grown year after year after year. They presented that to colleges and universities and even to the Aquarium of the Pacific here in Long Beach, to local programs over in Brixton Knolls, even at our own Villager Awards. They've been exhibitors there. They have done so much of this, and they started out just investing so much of their own time and their own money. And they became amazing curators and learning history. And they got us all interested in that history. They just become so important to all of us. And so with that, with all of that in mind, we knew we had to give them this award. We knew that. And at that award, they both came, and I think David did most of the speaking. But you see, now you got to get to hear both of them. Sharon always says she doesn't like to talk a lot. And David is right on point when he talks about the history. And I hope they'll be able to bring a few of the relics with them, and just a couple of them, just to give you just a flavor of what they are about. But they are telling not just one story. They're telling many stories. And they're telling many stories in our history that need to be brought forward. And they're bringing those stories to the community. They're bringing those stories to people who otherwise may not even look at it or know it. And so I'm just so happy to be able to have you meet them and meet that next generation of Mrs. Scott and her husband Pete. And then here's another thing. Here comes the next generation, okay? In 2019, we had decided that one of our Villager Award recipients would be Miss Scott's namesake. Her name is Trilla also, Trilla Sheba Gillis. Now, Sheba, as we call her, is the granddaughter of Mrs. Trilla Scott, okay? And I want you to hear Sheba's story. How is it that now we have gone 1, 2, 3 generations now into this third generation now, and they're still telling stories. Some of you have heard Sheba tell her story, and I can see when I hear her speak, when I see what she's accomplishing, I see in her that dream that I knew that Mrs. Scott had, and I see in her the power of telling one story. And so now you get to meet Sheba and get to see what that next generation looks like. Now the youngest generation out there, I think, is Aubrey. And then you may, Aubrey, hope you get a glimpse of her. But that's just one side of that story. I'm hoping that all those family members that are out there that are part of that whole big list of descendants, because I know their nieces, nephews, cousins, in-laws, they're a big group of people. And I'm hoping that some of them will be able to chime in as well. So we will be featuring the Villager Award recipients, but I want the family there to be able to chime in too, because their story is so rich and so full and so generational. And I think it will inspire so many others of us. So those are just the two sessions that I want to sort of whet your appetite with. But that's not all. That's not all. And we're going to be contacting you, and you will be, those of you who have been Villager Award recipients over the years, if you've not been contacted already, you will be contacted as we are scheduling now, and we will be presenting these webinars. So watch out for the schedule. Start getting yourselves ready for it, and we are ready for you. Thank you so much. These are exciting times, even in times of our stress. It is stressful for us. It is time for us to come alive now. It is time for us to bring our stories out of the shadows and into the light. Thank you so much.